So, in everyday life, we have we often stand before choices. Like, shall we do this? Shall we do that? Is this the right thing to do? Is this the wrong thing to do? Or even, is this evil or is this good? And also in society, you can see this. It's often a choice between two things. Like in economics, shall we have a liberal market economy, or shall we have that the government rule more over the economy? And in philosophy, do we believe that everything just is matter, that we say we are a materialist, or do we just say the only thing we know anything about is the consciousness? And we have classical art and modern art and so on. So that's that. From that we can understand that this concept, the third way, is used, in fact, in a lot of different circumstances, and mostly when they take up this concept, the third way, then they want to show that there is something else than this duality, that there is new way, something new way to look on things, to solve things. But what we want to say in the beginning of this evening is that the third way, in connection with the spiritual change, has nothing to do, has in fact no resemblance with these other third ways, because it won't help you in this everyday life. It wouldn't give you any help to choose this or that. It wouldn't help you to say what's right or wrong, or even what's bad or evil, because it turns your direction in a total, turns your direct you in a totally new direction in that way. And this third way you can find in the core of all the big religions, and it has different names. So in old China, they call it just the Tao, and which one of all the meanings from this sign, Chinese sign, is the road. And one movement inside the Islam is the Sufis, and they call it the way of the heart. And we Rosicrucians, we just call it the path. And so in some way, we could say it's a bit misleading, this name. We could have called it the other way, or the different way, or the totally different way, because if we really look at it, normally there isn't just two choices in this world. There is a multiple of choices. Maybe there are an infinite mass of choices, which are also, which we don't see them all. And but this third way has nothing to do with this at all. And you can, when you come closer to it, you can approach it from different perspectives, like a seeker for truth, or for you have feeling that you need to fill your life with something new. Maybe it's just a worry inside you. And before we go into what the third way is, we would like to a bit explore who is it that's going to walk this third way, and who going to take the decision to walk this way. And maybe the most obvious choice there is to say that it's me, it's I who want to walk this way, because I mean, most of us feel that we have an I, a personality, which we wake up in the morning until we go to bed in the evening. It's all the thoughts which are in our head, what we also call our consciousness. And for us, for many of us, this is our personality, this is the I, and this is the person who takes the choices. But psychologists, they often also talk about the subconscious. And the subconscious seems to be a part of our consciousness that we really couldn't grasp. It's out of our control. Sometimes, most of the time, we don't know about it, but sometimes it pops up, it shows up in circumstances that we can't control. And this can be complicated for us sometimes. And then many psychologists, they mean that via the night man, if we so say, that say our dreams, what happens in the night, we can get information about this subconscious. And even if we really do this, we go to analyze this our whole life, we will find out that this subconscious seems to be infinite in many ways. It's a waste continent, and it's not so clear answers we get there either. So it's not the whole thing. It doesn't help us really to know in total who we are. And if we continue to explore a bit around what a personality or what a man is, we could tell you a bit about in old Japan. In old Japan, they were talking often about the consciousness of the stomach. And in Sweden, we have expression, we say magkänsla, and that should be in English something like gut feeling. And for some persons, this is very important, where they make choices. And it could be any kind of choices, I mean, difficult choices in everyday life, but even, I mean, if you want to play money on a horse or on the lotto, they use their gut feeling. And often this is also a feeling which is strong when you are attacked, when you feel that there is danger going on. And beside this, we have our feelings, of course. And the feelings, as we first will speak about them here, is our emotions. And they are often both positive and negative emotions, and they can go from one side to another. So you have love and you have hate, you have despair, and you can be afraid and things like that. Through the years, through the millennia from man, and it's always said that the feelings, they are, the core of them is in the heart. They comes from the heart. And you know also from the lecture we heard from Vanessa and Dawe in March, where they're talking a lot about the heart, that the heart in some way has cells which can make it having a consciousness. So in some way, our personality is at least built up by our head, our heart, and our stomach, and these different kind of consciousness, different kinds of feelings, and both from the heart and from the stomach, they are not pronounced in that way. It's more like a strong feeling. And these different centers, they interact with each other too. And it could be interesting, before we go into what the university teachings say, that there was an English philosopher which was called David Hume in the 18th century. And David Hume, he was something what you call an agnostic, which means that he said that, I don't know if God exists. Maybe he exists, maybe he does not exist. But he wants really to examine how do people make their choices. And he spent years for that, both looking inside himself and looking around. And his conclusion was that all decisions in the end were made by the feelings. And he said, if you are an intellectual person, then directly after you have made this decision, then you try to find a theoretical description, a defense for your choice, an intellectual defense for your choice. And if you are a person of feelings, maybe you just let it be, and so on. And that makes that the heart has a very central point, because also the universal teachings say that the heart is in some way, from these three consciousnesses, it's central in many ways. And beside this, to make it even more complicated, we have our what we call our conscious. You know, our conscious is what says to us, this is right, this is wrong. In that meaning, what we have learned from our fathers and mothers, from our society where we are living. Some things we are even born with part of our conscious. And for some of us have probably spent days with an inner discussion between our I and our conscious. Is this really right? What shall I do? And take the pro and contras. And some authors, also artists, they have written about how they felt that this conscious is like a straitjacket, something which holds them back, and it has taken maybe half a life to get rid of it, to feel free. Because it can also change from all different cultures, but some things are common from different cultures. And beside this, we also have something that we call the conscious of the heart. And the conscious of the heart is something totally different from the normal feelings of the heart. And I think Vanessa and Dow talked a bit about that last time. And the concept of the heart is something which is eternal in us. And a first description of the third way could be that we, as seekers, as worried persons, we are longing for something else. We feel that something is missing. It could be another existence feeling. It could be another feeling. It's often an inner process, in fact. And to get us from this existence field, this nature, if we so want to the other nature, then we have to create a way, the third way. And we call it the third way because we have this nature where we are living now with all the choices, and we have something which is eternal, which we long for. So, and this is very different for every person. And this other way is not this nature, and it's also not the other nature. It's like a third nature. And therefore, we can also call this the third way. And that could be a very short start to get an idea what the third way is, because it's a way for us to turn around and go towards what's eternal. And the starting point is, of course, in ourselves, in what's eternal in ourselves. And of course, it could be problems in different ways. To how do we know that what's speaking in our heart is the conscious of our heart? How do we differ it from, how can we see the difference from all the feelings that we have in our heart? And what is typical for this conscious of the heart is that it just radiates love. It doesn't judge, doesn't criticize, while the other feelings we have, they are emotions, and they are pro and they are contrast. But the conscious of the heart is a still radiation of love. And that's the first thing. It's also so that when it's a lot of noise around you, or if it's a lot of things in your heart which turns around, then you don't hear this voice of the heart. And Mrs. Blavatsky, she called this the voice of silence. And it's not something that is pronounced, but it's something when you get aware of it, it's very strong, but it needs stillness inside you and inside your heart. So in fact, as man, we are a very complex, we are very complex as human beings. And then we could ask, how could I get in contact with the eternal part in myself? Because I mean, that's really something which is important when we are trying to answer the question, who's going to walk this third way? And and for some persons, maybe they can feel this from early years, from childhood. But for most of us, or for many of us, it comes in connection with a crisis in life, and often after the crisis, when everything begins to get very still, and you have a feeling that something has to change. I want to take a new step in life. I want to take a new direction in my life. And in this stillness, often you can hear for the first time, can get a feeling that there is something inside you who are eternal. And that could be like first step on this, a first idea of this, because that's very important. But then you can of course ask yourself, has it to be like that I'm going into a crisis? Is it always like that? That is a crisis which connects me with this? And of course it's not. It's in fact, the third way is different for every person. Not for one person, the third way is the same. Because we have different history. We have different abilities, different, we stand on different place in life. We can be old, we can be young. We have different skills. So we have a different starting point. And therefore, the third way is different for everyone. And that makes it in some way a very lonely way, although we have the same goal. And as we shall see later in this lecture, there is also a way for us to help each other. But to begin with, it is in some way a lonely way. And it's like that, no one can tell you really how you're going to walk this way. So if someone says like this, oh, I know how to do it. It's not like that, because he can maybe know the third way, but it's not your third way. And on the other hand, if you really feel that I found it, and someone comes to you and say, oh, hey, you seems to have found it. Show me the third way and I'll walk it. Then you couldn't tell them, because they have to create it themselves. And so it is with this third way. It has to be created by yourself, and something totally different from these two natures, from these different stages. And therefore it's, of course, I said a very important part in this is to get hold on, to get an idea of the eternal part of yourself. And how can you do that? And I say, by chance, sometimes through a crisis in your life, you get aware of this eternal part of yourself. And then you can ask yourself, of course, does it have to be like that? That has this had to be a crisis? And of course not, because as I said, there are a lot of different ways to come to these conclusions. And one which is described is that what I could call that you reflect in some way. Maybe it has been so that you, for a longer time, has felt that something is missing in your life. You want to do something, but you don't know what. And while searching around, you begin also to reflect over yourself and what you do, what you feel, what you think. And that's quite natural. In almost all the big religions, they say that you have to know yourself. You have to have self-knowledge to be able to go any spiritual path. And when you reflect on yourself, especially on your feelings, on your thoughts, and on your actions, maybe you are not so happy after a while. You feel these feelings, I don't want these feelings really, and I don't want these thoughts. And also, I don't want these actions. And maybe you try to act otherwise or think otherwise, but you find after a while it's really difficult. I mean, just think you go to someone, a guru, and he says, empty your mind. And you try to empty your mind to be silent inside, and it comes even more thoughts all the time running around your head. It's not like we can just switch off our thoughts. They are running around all the time, whether we like it or we don't like it. And it seems like the more we force ourselves to change there, the more difficulties we get. So, but it is possible when you really look into yourself, you can come to a position inside yourself where you look at yourself with love, but totally without taking any part. You don't criticize, you don't judge, you just look what's happening. And this is described in a lot of different religions, in fact, and it's called often the witness. The witness is someone who just look what's happening. And in India, in the Veda lectures, they call this witness, this part which is just looking without judging, without taking part, the Atman, the eternal part of you. Because it's really, I think probably most of you have sometimes had this reflection where you're looking at yourself and you can just ask yourself what or who is looking, because I mean, it's not my normal eye, it's not a normal thoughts, it's something which in fact can look at our feelings, at our thoughts even, and everything like that. So it's and the old Indians in the Veda scriptures, they call it the Atman, the eternal inside you. And they say that you can see it is the light of the eyes, because every person has light in the eyes. And this is in some way put off when the physical body dies, then it withdraws. But every person carries something of God inside them, and someone light is stronger for someone lower, but it is there for everyone. And this is another perspective of what is internal in us, and there are more perspectives like that, but we should stop there. And in fact, it could then seem like that we have two different, we have the head and we have the heart from the eternal. But in fact, and that is also so, where you can read everywhere, that these two are the one and the same. And this is something that you can get aware of. That the voice in your heart and this silent witness, it's the same thing. It's all one. The eternal in you is all one. And then when you come to this, when you really realize this and you feel it deeply in yourself that this is the same thing, then the love in your heart can embrace this silent witness. And then it's possible for you, because you said that the love in the heart, it's something which you couldn't pronounce. It's just a radiation. But when it embraces the witness, this, and when you really realize that it's one and the same, then it's new thoughts can come up in your head. And then you said you have created a connection between heart and head. And this is a very important first step in your spiritual path. And we often, when we have been able to get this connection between heart and head, we say that a new soul is born. And in this lecture, we have talked a lot about different parts of the personality, but we have never mentioned the soul. And that's the reason for that, is that the soul is a word like God and other words, which is used very much. It's even used for kind of music. It's used, many, they say it's a synonymous for consciousness, and there are a lot of different ways to express what the soul is. And therefore we call this the new soul. The new soul is when you get aware that these two are one, and there is a connection between head and heart. And coming so far, we can begin to give some different expressions of what the third way is or could be. Sometimes we often talk in pictures, because, you know, in Tao Te Ching, it's stated in the beginning, if you describe the third way, or if you describe the Tao, it is not a Tao, because the Tao could not be described. But still, Tao Te Ching exists, and all through the millennia of human mankind, we have tried in some way, at least, to express how you come to the point where you start the third way, where you get in connection with Tao. Then when you are in connection with Tao, it's not possible to express, but you can help each other to come to, yes, to where it starts. And one picture sometimes for this third way is a bridge. So let's say, we can say it like this. Then when you build a bridge, you have the first bridge pillar, which steadily stand in our existence field, the field with a lot of choices, as we stated in the beginning. And that there, the first bridge pillar is insight. And insight, what we mean with insight there is both, or it's a lot of different things. It's that you have to have an insight who you are as a personality. You have to know yourself. But you also has to be aware that there inside you exists an eternal personality, something which is eternal. And that what is eternal has different name in different religions. It's called, sometimes the Rosycrossians call it before the rose, and in East Asia it's called the lotus of the heart, and in sometimes it's called the spirit spark or the spark, something like that. So it has a lot of different names. But you have to be aware that there is an eternal being inside you beside your normal personality. And also in insight, you have to have an idea about the existence field that you now are living in. And that meaning that you have to understand what are the possibilities in this existence field. What are the limits? What are the possible developments in this existence field that we are living in? And if you have all this insight, if you're going deep to yourself, you have this insight, then often in you something grows, a longing for more knowledge, a longing for something else, for maybe another existence field or something, an inner change, a spiritual change. It can be difficult sometimes to pronounce exactly what it is. But when you also more and more get aware that inside you there is something eternal, it also grows a hope. And with this hope, you can like tense an arch, and that's a second step. An arch from this shore to the other nature. And this arch, this bow, it's not enough to walk on yet, but it's a start for you on this approaching this third way. And then as a third step comes self-surrender. And you maybe say, the one of you who have listened here carefully, that what you mean here, you said in the beginning that this third way, it has nothing to do with my daily life. And it's also so that this eternal doesn't care about my daily life here, but I have to work, I have to eat, I have to take care of my children, maybe pick them up on children's care or something like that. It's a lot of things I had to do, so I couldn't just leave it like that. And of course you could not do that. But as we have stated here before, the personality is quite complex, and we have a lot of memories, we have skills, we have abilities. So it's no problem for us to continue doing what we have to do, to take care of the people who are around us. Because when we talk about self-surrender, it's surrender of the I. And with the I, then we meet the force that has brought us to this point in life and given us the work we have, the family we have, what things we have around us. It's also the force which have make the human race totally dominant on this earth, so that they are so strong now that they can destroy the whole earth. They would like to, they have created weapons. And this I, or this ego power, which is very strong, it can also, it's first around your own self, but it can also embrace a family, it can embrace a bigger group, relatives maybe, or friends, or even a whole people. But it's in some way always centered around the own personality, the own ego. And that's what you have to give up. And this don't have to be very dramatically. That's something which can go rather slow. So you don't have to you couldn't do it in one day like that. And like in Hinduism and in Buddhism, this is stated very clear that that's a very important thing that they take up very much about the I and giving up the I, and they even mean that it's all Maya. That's so if you're getting conscious that it's not a reality, then it can dissolve like that. But also in other religions, this exists. So if we take, for example, Christianity, which we are belonging to the Christianity, Paul, he says, I die daily. And with that, he means that to his ego, he dies daily. A small part of his egocentrism are dissolving. And on the same time, the other one, because when you do this, then you let over to the eternal part of you. So when you make a surrender, then you let one part, your ego, dissolve, another part grow, which is you surrender to the eternal part of yourself. And also Jesus said, the one who are willing to die for me will live. And then he means, of course, if we are willing to let the ego die, then the eternal person will live, and with them part of this person too. So that's a third step. And coming so far, so most probably people around you will not experience something. They will not say that you have been different, because you do everything that you should do. You do your work, you take care of the people around you, because this is an inner process. But then after a while, maybe some which are looking are interested in you, they can see that that your, if you so say, your gravitation point has changed a bit. You are some things which are less interesting and some things which are more important, and this makes a small change. And then you come to something we call the fourth step. It's a new way of living, a new way to live. And that's one expression how you come to a start towards this third way. A total another way to express this is by this. You remember we said that in you, when head and heart are connected, a new soul is born. And this is in some way an eternal being. So inside yourself, you have your personality with all these different parts, with the feelings from the hearts, the thoughts from your head, and maybe gut feelings, maybe a conscious. And you have this new soul. And you can see on old paintings often a person with two heads pointing in totally different directions. And that is the duality which you're standing in that part of your life. And then it has to be like that they have to be aware of each other. You as a person has to be aware of the new soul, and the new soul has to be aware of you. So they have to turn around 180 degrees. It's not enough that one of them turn around, because then they just see the back of the other one. They have to turn around, both of them, 180 degrees, and they have to come closer to each other. And at last, they merge together to eternal being. And that's another way to express what we want to happen on this third way. And yeah, and there are, as I said, there are a lot of different ways to express this. But as I come back, I said in some parts of this lesson that the third way is different for every person, and it's in that way a bit lonely. But you can also have help from each other. And by looking a bit in history, I would like to give some examples. In Europe, during the early medievals, there was a movement in the Catholic Church called the Cathars. And the Cathars, they also tried to walk this third way. They had an own name for that. They call it the way of the stars. And somehow they have described this, and then they said, this way, it's lonely, it's hard, it's cold, but it's so beautiful, beyond all description. And though it was a lonely road, they lived in a community, and they really had a lot of help. from each other. And then I'll go to another historical or a myth or a legend, which is turning up in a lot of different places, in different religions. And that is a myth of the big river and the ark which is built. And with the ark, some persons can escape from this big river, from this great river, which comes like a flood over all land. And this has been written in a lot of different scriptures. And then you could ask, what has this to say to us now? You know, most of you have probably in your life experienced that you, in different circumstances, as a group, can do a lot of things, do things which you could, like, it's not like that 1 and 1 and 2, or 1 and 2 is 1 and 2 and 3 is, it's more, because if you are all really, if you get a harmonious direction in life, then something strong can be created. It's easier to do it. And that is connected with something like, you know, when we are thinking, all our thinkings, all our thoughts, they are electrical impulses, electrical currents inside us, in our brain, in our nerves. And as directly when you have an electrical current, then it's created a magnetic field. So around every person, there is a magnetic field. And this magnetic field have different names, or in history, it's often called the aura or the astral body or something like that. And if a group of persons are directed in the same direction, they can create an astral field, which makes them together. It's possible for them to do things that they couldn't do alone, right? And we can take an easy example. I mean, let's say you have 2 football teams, and it can sometimes be like that one of the teams, it's, when you look at every position, it's the other ones are much more skilled, they're much better players, all of them. But in some way they succeed in getting a group unit in that one, so they can win over the better team in that way, because they are so connected with each other, they have the same goal, they are directly the same. And a lot of people have experienced this in their childhood, or when they were young, they can have been on a camp or something, and they have felt this, that we do something together, and they felt it very strong. But what is typical for all this kind of direction is that they are temporal, they are for a certain short time. But if a group of real seekers, persons who really want to walk the third way, and people who want to do that, they have very straight the same goal, they are directed in the same direction, and all of them are ready to go the third way with whatever it takes. Then they create a very special magnetic field, like a body. And you can think about it like, often when this happens, it's come some forerunners, some persons, a man, a woman, or one man and a woman, which really incarnates, they know a lot. And they create the keel in some way, in this celestial ship. And after them, they come a group of persons also very directed. And this keel is their third way. And then they come a group of persons which also are ready to do this. And they do the first, the first ribs in this boat very strongly. And afterwards there can come more and more people building on this celestial ship. And then this celestial ship is in a way a third way. It doesn't mean that for anyone coming there that they don't have to do their own third way. Yes, they have to bring their own third way, but no more and more people come and work on this celestial body, on this magnetical body. But for people coming in later on when it already exists, it's really a great help. And for me now, my idea was that I should stop here. I could say a lot about this celestial body. It could be a subject for another night here, maybe if there is interest, another time. So I said stop here, and I'm very happy that you have listened to this, and you're very welcome if you have any questions or if you have any remarks about what has been said. Okay, thank you.